There's many, many more. I think we could be looking at a million. The question is, will our governments continue in this path of unequivocal support for Israel when their bombardment is so relentless, even to the extent that they have now rejected the statements of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and they've outrightly rejected his statements that this is like a catastrophe bordering on the extinction of a particular race. And obviously the powers that be didn't take exception to that. Now they're calling for his resignation. What do you think about this call for the resignation of the UN Secretary General? What is your view on that?
I think it's unlikely to be successful. Let me ask you about the solutions, because I've heard different chants here. I've seen different posters, and I'm trying to understand what the desired outcome is. So maybe you can tell me, what is the hoped-for resolution from your point of view?
Well, UN Resolution 242...
No, sorry, I don't mean UN resolution.
I know what you mean.
Like on the ground.
I understand. Okay, on the ground, immediate cessation of hostilities from all parties concerned. And by that proxy, an immediate and unequivocal guarantee that a solution is incumbent, meaning we're not going to have talks about talks like in the famous 1993 Oslo Accords, where Bill Clinton got hold of Shimon Peres, and the first thing they mentioned is let's have talks about talks in reference to the Palestinian issue. We want something done now. The immediate cessation of violence. Israel withdraws back to its pre-1967 borders. That will be the first prerequisite, as according to the UN Resolution 242 and 338, where they have to disperse from the West Bank and Gaza, which they have not done, and flagrantly rejected international law, which we are supposed to be great proponents of.
So, back to the 1967 borders,
yes,
the West Bank and the Gaza.
Yes.
But one of the chants I've heard is from the river to the sea. So that's the Jordan River, I imagine, and the Mediterranean Sea, which would cover Tel Aviv, which would cover pre-1967 Israel. Do you believe there should be a state of Israel in the Holy Land?
Well, Israel, this is a common fallacy of history, that the land of Israel belongs to the Israelites.
So you don't think it does?
Well, I'm giving you an elongated answer. It's not a simple yes or no, because the general understanding amongst of the Jews is that the Israelites were the natural inhabitants of the land of Palestine, but that's not the case. The Canaanites and the Philistines were there before them as well. So that's a misnomer. When Moses parted them from the sea and they went forth, it was not that was their particular land. The land could have been chosen from there all the way to the river Euphrates, but it was not that was their particular land. So at the moment, they have to, the 1967 borders would have to be the initial prerequisite, which they have to vacate the occupying lands. And obviously there are millions of people over there, so they can't be displaced, even though they're Israelis. So that's a given fact. So at the same time, there has to be some sort of accommodation for them, unless there is mass repatriation back to different parts of the world which they came from, which is going to be unlikely. So it's not like we're going to be looking at augmenting another human catastrophe in the shape of the Jewish people who are already there. But however, that would be the prerequisite, the 1967 borders.
So prerequisite
for talks to enable. So Israel must withdraw from the occupied territories. That's a prerequisite.
And who would Israel's negotiating counterpart be? Who would be on the other side of the table?
Well, anyone who is of a particular understanding that would be a central call. So any political party which evaluates that and understands that. Because what is the other alternative?
So who would represent the people of Gaza?
Whoever that would be the case, whoever they decide, whoever that would be the case, whoever is elected democratically. Supposedly, we have democratically elected governments. From my understanding, Hamas was democratically elected. I've never been to Palestine, but from my understanding, that was the case. So let the Palestinian people decide.
Are you from Britain originally, or did you come
here? Yeah, I was born there. Yeah.
And do you mind me asking where you grew up?
Yes, I was born and brought up in London.
And what shaped your views on these subjects?
Well, the historicity. The fact that Britain, unfortunately, not the Englishman, not the average Joe public, but our governments played terrible games. The Balfour Declaration, 1917, how they in France secretly tried to divide Palestine amongst themselves, having promised the Arabs the autonomous state that they would be getting. They played games galore, which they are unfortunately doing now. You have to accept this. Do you accept that the British and the Americans are playing games? Do you accept this?
Well,
Do you accept, historically speaking, the Balfour Declaration? The British government at that time were playing games in trying to divide and rule, where they were promising the Arabs that they would have their country back if they supported them during the First World War, and after that they broke their treaties, and they were, between France and Britain, they were going to divide Palestine for themselves. But on the blind side, the relevant Israeli groups, they got together and decided otherwise, with support from the US.
Can I ask you?
So you never answered any of my. You've asked me relentless questions. I'd like to ask you. I've asked several of your questions. What I'd like to ask you: do you condemn the Israeli government's barbaric bombardment of the innocent people of Palestine, in which the indigenous masses of this country are viewing and coming out and protesting?
I don't think I want to answer that question. I want to be a reporter.
It's amazing. Wherever you guys, seems the Western media are so frivolous to criticize Israel in any capacity. It's like an endemic fear that they could lose their job, or they could lose any other entitlement.
I'm not worried about losing my job.
But that's a brutal reality, you see.
I'm here to ask you some questions. If you don't want to...
That's fine. But like I said, it was a two-way meet. When I did approach you, I've answered several of your questions. So again, that's fair that I asked you basic...
But we agreed that you will answer some questions.
Yes, we agreed upon that.
That you have another face, not the real face. When we talk to before.
So when we're asking you reasonable questions, we're asking you reasonable, responsive questions, it seems that you're not going to accept this 1917 Balfour Declaration. You're not going to accept what the Western governments got up to. They're trying to divide and rule. The British have already accepted this was their policy during the subcontinent era as well. So let's face it, all these events that are occurring in the world, in Kashmir, in Palestine, wherever you guys, have been the result of the foreign policies of the Western governments, in particular Britain and now today America. Do you accept this or not?
You're saying about 20 things and asking me if I...
No, it's one singular question. Do you... Okay, I'll shorten it, just so there's no confusion.
Did you come to the Kashmir protest? Did you come to the rally for Kashmir?
Not let him digress.
Yeah, so we seem to be digressing. It's a fair question that I've asked. You seem to be going on the tangent. Well, it's all very... So what happens is when the Muslim audience will, or people in general, will observe our conversation, and I've answered your questions and you've not answered a singular one, they're going to come to the certain pretext that you are deliberately not looking to answer the questions because you're fearful of potential repercussions.
Him to answer the question. He will ask you a question and you answer it, and you will ask him a question.
Instead, you asked me several questions and I answered all those 7 questions. But it's a fair factor that you have. We all know they've got you by the short and curlies, as they say.
Can you
well,
please...
if you're calling me names, I don't want to participate anymore.
That's fine. No
Good
problem.
luck to you.
Stop killing the kids. Yes. Stop killing. What are you talking about? Who's this guy? Kids. You have kids. Yeah. It's only about the kids. Stop British kids being sold. That would never happen. But because they're Palestinian, because they're Muslim,
Yes.
To answer your question.
You don't care. Just the kids.
Maybe, sorry, my friend. As the conversation was with me initially, may I ask which organisation you're with? Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, we can't have to get out. We can't say. It's all right. It's okay. It's all right. We don't even know.
Maybe he'll find his soul.
So which my friend, which organisation are you with? Which organisation? Which is your newscasting organisation? Pardon?
Rebel News.
Global News.
No, Rebel News.
Rebel News. Okay, that's it. Are you with him? Yes. Okay, cool. So don't you think it's unfair that today I have asked this gentleman several of his questions?
I'm just a cameraman.
I know you're a poor guy. You're under the grip of a certain system, and that system is bombarding those innocent people. Simple.
Your daughter 7. What happened to them?
15 years.
So we must speak calmly, otherwise it gives a bad image.
15 years. Enough.
So what do you say, my friend? Mr. Rebel News. This is Rebel News today, speaking on behalf of their channel. Maybe just ask one question. What are your views on the Israeli bombardment of Gaza? Can we have your one singular view, please?
Yeah, let's hear yours.
Let's hear it.
Well, I'm here to understand what the protest.
Obfuscation. You can never criticise them because they've got you by the short and curlies. You're probably worried about.
If you don't know what it's for, see yourself out.
The Rebel News. So 1 second, please. This is not Rebel News. This is just like one-way news. Because if you criticise the state of Israel, you're going to be in for the jump. Everybody knows that, my friend. You know.
Why?
Fine, let me just say, I've been to Gaza, I'm a medic. I went before this all happened. I saw a child get shot by the IDF. The IDF stopped us without ambulances to get to the child. It was atrocious before this, and now it's even more worse. I'm banned from Israel because they took my details and said, no, you're not coming back as a medical officer. So just go away, please.
So this is just
the killing of children in Gaza.
do you condemn
Look at the
children?
reporter. Look at the reporter. Mashallah. Yes,
Okay,
you are
wait.
so
Do
good.
you condemn the killing of the children in Gaza, Mr. Reporter?
I'm here to ask questions about the protest.
Oh my
And,
God!
you've already
This is
attacked
sickening.
me
This
and
is
insulted
this is
me.
very.
It's unfair
No one.
for you
I haven't
to
insulted
ask
you.
people why-
What's happened is that you can't answer the question.
Take care, fellas.
Okay, you have a good time. That's it. So let me conclude. So inshallah, what we've seen here is whatever Rebel News, BBC News, ITV News, Sky News, they cannot criticize Israel's brutality. This is the reality of things. When will people find this all out? You know, they've got their agents hiding around everywhere just to make sure that people can't speak the truth. So we've got to all be very clear. This reporter got done big time.
Yeah,
He's from an organization called Rebel News. That's the name of the organization. They could not in any way, shape or form criticize Israel's bombardment of the innocent children of Gaza. Isn't this incredible? Rebel News. There you go. Allah guide them, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
I work for a hotel, brother. Don't worry.
So no problem.